Welcome to the Babies in Business Podcast. Join your hosts, Rachel and Avram Gonzales, real-life parents and business partners. Each week on Babies in Business, Rachel and Avram create a space for entrepreneurial parents to find their own way. They'll dive into insights on topics like leadership, efficiency, self-awareness, budgeting, and human psychology as they nurture their family and build their business. Here's your hosts, Avram and Rachel.
Hey, welcome back. It's Avram Gonzales from the Babies in Business Podcast. I'm here with good friend and colleague, Mr. Michael Schlichte. What's good with you, Mike?
Not a lot, man. I'm happy to be on and excited to talk about what I've been working on out in the world and inside my own head.
Absolutely. So Mike is a father, a real estate, I will call him a mini mogul here in Albuquerque, Rio Rancho, New Mexico. And one of the things that always inspired me about Mike and why he's on the podcast with us here today is because he's somebody who's always had a vision, has worked through many different hardships and many different transformations of the mind to arrive where he is today, which is building, and we're going to talk about this later, in the process of building, almost done with that dream home. Okay. Yes. But more importantly, architecting his desired life. So excited to have you here, Mike. The first thing I want to ask you about is the super sick deal. Mike shared with me recently one of his defining purposes, right? And one of the things that you're architecting in your life is the super sick deal. Tell me about that and that conversation that we had that I'm talking about.
Yeah, the super sick deal started when I just trying to get my head right, trying to think of what I could focus my energy on, focus my manifestation powers on. And one of those things that a recurring theme that I've done, whether through exercise or meditation, is health, wealth, and love. And I had this recurring, mantra in my head for a really long time. And I refined it because I wanted it to be a little bit more specific. And so one of the specifics that I focus on is, I write super sick deals every day. And I would say this as I'm running, as I'm playing soccer, as I'm doing sort of like flow state type stuff. I write super sick deals every day, usually in sequence with my footsteps. So that was sort of the way that I was training my brain to be ready for a super sick deal. Well, what is a super sick deal is the question. And so this year, my definiteness of purpose statement is I live a life full of adventure, filled with family connection, fueled by super sick deals. And a super sick deal for me, it just means that it's a deal, like a real estate deal, because that's the business that I'm in, that fills my longing to achieve and grow, and at the same time fills my bank account. And one of the things as an entrepreneur that's motivated me, and probably many people that are listening, would be freedom. This mindset of like financial freedom creates these freedoms that I can explore with my family, freedoms I can explore with my friends. And so having that freedom, from what I've been able to tell, the freedom I've achieved has come from large windfalls of cash through large deals that are highly profitable. And the other thing I found in real estate is the small deals take just as much time as the big deals. And so if you can focus your powers of manifestation, whatever you want to call it, prayer, whatever your word of the day is, if you focus that energy, whatever you focus on expands. And so if you focus it on a large deal, you start to manifest large deals in your life. If you focus on small deals, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just you're probably going to get small deals with the occasional big one. So I really have focused the last 2 years of my career on allocating time and energy for large deals. And I call them super sick deals because it's way more fun.
It is way more fun. Have you found any sort of maybe imposter syndrome as you cast that vision wider?
Yeah. I mean, I think anyone who's had any sort of success, material or otherwise, runs into that right away. I mean, there's no shortage of biographies that you can read on people that talk about that. So yeah, I mean, I think the I'm not good enough for these types of deals, or the comparison to other people that maybe have more experience than you. I think I just come back down to adding value for myself and for my customers. And the more I do that, the more I focus in, the less that imposter syndrome comes up, because, I'm lucky. And I think, Avram, you probably find this in your business, is that there's a lot of routine built into our business, but occasionally you have a client where you're pretty certain that you're the only person that could have helped that client, right? No one else in the industry could have provided the type of service that you provided, the type of value you provided. And so I cling to those. When I have those clients or I have a super sick deal that I'm like, no one else around me, my peers, I did this better than anyone around. You gotta like celebrate the victories. My sister says that a lot. Like, you have to celebrate victories. You have to cling to them because life is hard and challenging and it wants to knock you down. So
on those days, because they're there, you want that reminder.
Yep.
I had this friend, Cassie. She had this file that she called the Cassie is Awesome file. And she would just take every single testimonial or good thing that happened in her business and put it in there because of all the rough days that were in between. She could just open it up and then drink that in and feel that again.
Yeah.
So you and Danielle, your wife Danielle, are a power team. You work together intimately, of course, on your goals and the evolution of those goals. So tell me a little bit about how that's changed over the years. I mean, it seems like a very big focus and a thing that you both get excited about.
Yeah, I think I am a little bit more rigid in my belief systems and like how I think the world works. And Danielle is more of a free spirit, more free flowing. So her ability to manifest is, at least in my opinion, more natural. It's sort of like this. In the 90s, we used to say no doy, right? It was like, duh, so she's able to like hold these things in her mind over extended periods of time without losing focus or forgetting. Like, my brain I forget stuff. Like I can focus on something for a time and then it just evaporates. And so for me, like, I have to write things down. I have to write down my goals and then I review them annually. And so one thing that I do is I write a 1-page definiteness of purpose statement, which is adapted from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and some of the other things that he has to do with like mastermind groups. So that's my purpose statement. It's always 1 page. It has 3 focuses: family, business, and fitness. Sometimes there's some spirituality mixed in there, depending on what I have going on in my personal life. But it's just a 1-pager. It's a reminder. I tape it to my printer. I look at it once a month or once every other month, and as just a reminder. And then I always have an annual statement. This year, the statement is I live a full life. I live a life full of adventure, which you have to be careful with adventure.
You do.
When you tempt the fates with that phrase, it's very ambiguous. And so I've had to remind myself as I go through different adventures with the house build, with my business, I have to remind myself that I asked for these adventures. And that can be sometimes a harsh reminder. So yeah, I keep it simple. 1 page, I share it with Danielle. Anything that's on there the following year that I didn't take a single action point on, I didn't do a single thing to work towards that goal, I scrape it. I don't let it linger on there multiple years in a row, because honestly, if you have 12 months to accomplish something and you're not even taking the first step, it's probably not really the direction that you want to go in. So it's a 1-pager. I keep it simple. And I usually like some catchy saying at the front so that it helps me read it throughout the year and get excited.
I love it. I can appreciate that big time. And I can appreciate the complementary nature that you have in your relationship. Rachel and I are the same way. We're like these very opposite on certain things. And it sounds like, if I had to guess, that she probably helps you come back to your center sometimes when things don't go according to plan.
Yeah, totally. And I don't know how she holds these things in her mind, but sometimes I'm like, would you just manifest like, millions and millions of dollars for us so I don't have to go to work, because I think honestly she could do it. But she just doesn't, she's not motivated really by finance. She's not motivated by money. And so it is an interesting combination. So
come on, Danielle. You got the slack.
Yeah. Place the order with the universe. Let's go. Make it happen, because I'm struggling.
Yeah. So I know that the two of you went through especially earlier on in your entrepreneurial career, you guys had some massive debt that you were dealing with, right? You weren't always in this place where you were able to build wealth for yourself and your family. So describe to me what your mindset was like when you guys were digging your way out and pushing forward.
Building a business while raising a family can be tough to juggle for any entrepreneur. Knowing where to focus and how to spend your limited time is critical to your success. That's why Babies in Business has produced and made available a fantastic audio resource for you. It's titled 5 Key Focus Areas to Build a Profitable Business Without Burnout. During this short training, Rachel and Avram peel back the curtain on their secrets to building a business that serves your family, your dreams, and beyond. To download your free copy of the 5 key focus areas, go to babiesandbiz.com/download. Again, that's babiesandbiz, biz.com/download to get your free copy. We hope you enjoy. Now, back to the podcast.
I think of that often, Avram, because we do have so much material abundance and success in our life right now. And sometimes with abundance and success comes doubt, and I used, I was highly motivated. I wanted to be successful materially. So I was highly motivated. The books that I was reading, the authors that I was reading, they all kind of had the same foundation of, believe it and you can achieve it sort of thing. So I was naively confident based on that. But I also really clung to mathematics. So I knew that my goal was to be a millionaire. And really when I started to pursue it seriously was when I realized I was 28 years old, really heavily in debt. I had thought at that time I would for sure be a multimillionaire. And I was not. I was negative net worth, a lot of debt. And so I just looked at it from a mathematical perspective and I thought, okay, I'm 28 years old. The statistics say that I have to save $600 a month to retire at age 59 and a half as a millionaire. And so I just started that, every month I had my $600 that was earmarked for my financial goals. And, I used other tools, debt snowballs and things like that. But I think naivety, I have to credit it to sort of this unwavering faith that I was going to be successful. And part of that is because I saw people in the world that were not smart, that were successful. I saw people in the world that were not hardworking and were successful materially. And I thought, man, I am smart and I am hardworking. I'm definitely going to be successful. It's just I need more discipline. I need more strategy. I need more knowledge. And, I couldn't have even begun to describe at age 28 everything that I would learn throughout my 30s. And now I'm 41. So, I think naivety. And so sometimes I have to come back to that, Avram. I have to say to myself, I have all this abundance. I have all these tools in my tool bag. I have all this track record of success. So why am I worrying about paying my mortgage next month? I have a savings account. I have retirement. I have assets. I have all these tools that I didn't have. But for some reason in my 20s, I was just like, I didn't have any of that. I had no experience. I had no money. I had nothing. But I'm like, oh, I'm going to be rich for sure. And so I think sometimes I have to remind myself, like, get back to that naive state of mind and forget, worrying about, oh, what am I going to lose today? Like, what am I going to lose? My connection with my wife? Am I going to lose connection with my son? Am I going to lose this upcoming client? Am I going to lose the super sick deal that I've been working on for a year? Like, that's just noise. Like, just focus on what you want. Focus on the abundance that you have and what I'm grateful for and what I'm thankful for. And when I do that, the other stuff seems to fade away. And guess what? Those things start showing up more and more in my life. When I'm focused on the other side, my car gets broken into, I back into a pole, there's just stuff like that happens. There's distractions. So anyways, I think that's naivety is probably my answer to that question. I was naively confident.
That's good. And it's honest. I think a lot of us in our 20s, especially young men, we're just like, we just kind of go for it. And that's kind of the superpower of being in your 20s and having nothing to fear. I think that's something I realized you reminded me of as you were talking, worrying about all the stuff that you could lose. It took me a long time to realize that I am never going to go totally broke because I would never allow myself to be there. Your head can go to the worst possible places, but what's your baseline? Most of us are saying to the universe right now, I'm surviving. At least I'm surviving. So you're not going to be homeless. You're not going to be without food. You're not going to be without money. Like, even the worst case scenario, guess what's going to happen? You lose everything. Something will find its way back to you very quickly. So I want to shift gears here as we start to wrap up. You and Danielle have embarked on this huge journey of building your custom home. Something that maybe you thought for a while you never would after selling and buying so many houses, flipping them. Like, do I really want to build a custom house? Tell me about what that journey is like, being so close to the end. And then also, if there's anything you'd like to share about moments where you felt really tested in this process, because I would bet that something this big would test you in maybe some roundabout ways along the way.
Yeah, you're familiar with Guy Hendricks' book, The Big Leap, which
Yes.
the premise is that we all have a thermostat of success, a thermostat for love, a thermostat for goodness, that when triggered, we end up sort of figuring out a way to bring that temperature down. So, it explains a lot of lottery winners. It explains a lot of Olympic gold medalists. They win a gold medal and the very next day they're desperately depressed because they've achieved this amazing thing. But now they're like, now what? Now what? Because you still have to wake up with yourself. You still have to wake up in the next day and do your thing. So the upper limit for me has been a challenge. My blueprint, my financial blueprint from a child was one of lack, not poverty, but not wealth by any stretch of the imagination, large family, single income. So yeah, I think my upper limit has been triggered multiple times. The day I signed the construction loan, which was huge. The checks that I've written, which have been huge, the amount of money that we've spent on this project far exceeded my expectations of what I personally would spend on a house. I had a friend of mine who got hurt a couple of years ago when we first were deciding, like, are we going to do this? Are we going to stretch and like build our dream home? It's a 20-year process in the making. And he got hurt, almost died, in a coma. And that week, I'm like, you know what? I think I would trade all this. I would trade rental properties, vacant land. I would trade the cash I have in the bank. I would trade all of it to check off the box of, we built a dream home. We built, it's a magnificent property. I mean, it's far superseded any expectations that I would have had, that Danielle and I would have been able to accomplish in a single lifetime. And the answer at that point in time, because that was so raw and like, when tragedy brings out interesting parts of people, but I thought, yeah, I would trade it all. I would trade all of my assets, all of my money, everything to like have this creation. And I didn't realize I was giving commands to the universe in that moment, because I really did have to trade a lot more than I was hoping to accomplish it. So, it's interesting. I've always flown under the radar. And so this house is not an under the radar house. We've always remained debt free, and we don't take out auto debt. We don't have any credit card debt. But this house is on another level. And so certainly like my own identity has been challenged of like, who am I really? Am I really this conservative, fiscally conservative entrepreneur who always leverages his cash perfectly and never makes a mistake on investments? And the answer to that question is no, I am not, because I have this ridiculous house that we're building. And but boy, has it been an amazing creative outlet for my wife. She's designed it from ground zero. We don't have an interior designer. She did all of that work on her own. She's made all the acquisitions, all the purchasing. People have offered her jobs within the industry because of the way that our house is coming out. We're going to be featured in a local magazine called Sukasa for the Parade of Homes in October. So we're super excited about that. And it's just been a challenge. Every day is a challenge. And we're about 3 weeks away from moving in. So
crazy. It's going to be a fun little housewarming come 4th of July-ish.
It will. Yes,
That's
it will.
wild. All right. Well, hey, we're winding down here on time. I'm sure our listeners would love to know where it is that you're hanging out online. Where can they connect with you?
Probably Facebook or my website, my505home.com. I'm digging into The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, which is a foundational book for me that I read 15 years ago. And I'm actually starting a paid mastermind group through that. So if anybody's interested in learning how to become a millionaire real estate investor, that would be a really good track for you. It's 8 weeks long. You'll be meeting with me once a week. I'm going to be sharing all my tools, my calculators, my loan agreements, my loan docs for raising hard money, all that stuff will be included in the class. So that's going to be really fun. So yeah, Facebook or my website.
Yeah, my505home.com. We're going to have everything, all of Mike's contact information loaded up in the show notes. You can catch it on the website, babiesandbizpod.com or Babies and Biz Podcast. It's still getting weird saying that URL out loud. But we're going to wrap things up here, Mike. It's been awesome having you. Powerful, strong father, building his dream, visioning with his family. We're going to enter the rapid fire question round. We got like 5 quick questions for you before we round it out. Let's hit it. So what's your favorite part of being a dad right now?
Right now, I would say Oliver sometimes will come to me and he'll just say, "Dad, I need violence," which which means he wants to wrestle, and so it's time to go. Like when he says, I need violence, maybe, we've been on screens too long or something. We need to get pent up energy out. But he just turns to me and said, Dad, I need some violence. And so it's time to go on that. So,
that's hilarious. Yeah. What's the most interesting or challenging thing that you're navigating as a parent right now?
I would definitely say like screen time. I mean, that's, I think for us personally as humans, I think everyone is struggling with that. It's just getting so easy to just stay on your devices. And so screen time, and then when to push, like, do you push them to sports, to music? Kids have it easy these days. I think they need to be pushed a little bit. So it's just determining where to push, when to push, because you don't want to push kids away from an activity, right? You don't want to drive them so hard towards something that they reject it. Which we've all experienced. So those two things.
Interesting balance to maintain. What's a developmental thing that your son Oliver has done that's kind of surprised you recently?
He made a math loop the other day out of a cube with these recycling recurring numbers, like each line equaled the next and to the next and to the next. And I had like 3 people check his work because I'm like, this can't be real. He's like, oh yeah, I just made it. So that, and we downloaded Zelda, the Tears of the Kingdom, and he like plays it for 15 minutes. He knows how to do all this stuff. And he's 8, which I can't, it's wild. So that's been a lot of fun.
That's cool. What book are you reading right now?
So The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, I just reread The Big Leap because that's something I struggle with quarterly. But for fun, The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson is just, I mean, if you want to stop watching YouTube, you want to stop watching Netflix, you want to put down news, you want to go and like just let your mind go. The Way of Kings is a phenomenal series. It's fiction, of course.
Cool. We'll link that up in the show notes too. Yeah. Last question. What's a word of encouragement that you'd give to entrepreneurial dads that are still in their first 6 months with their first kiddo?
It gets easier, Avram. That's what I would say. I think for men specifically, I can't speak for everyone. This is a generalization, obviously, but I think it's hard to connect with an infant that's so interconnected with a mom, right? They're breastfeeding typically, and they're tight. Like nothing can or should get in the way of that bond. So you can feel like an outsider in your own family because you don't get that immediate connection. Again, everyone is different, but many of the men that I've spoken to are just like, man, yeah, I'm second fiddle, this and that. And I would say right around a year, I shared this with Avram originally, that connection then starts to grow. And now my son's 8 and like tides have turned, he still needs his mom. He still loves his mom, but dad time is where it's at.
I mean, that's where you're going to get some violence, right? with Papa.
When you need violence, you come to dad.
That's great. Well, thanks, Mike. A pleasure and a joy as always to have you on here. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. That's a wrap for the Babies in Business podcast. Make sure to connect with us online on all the social platforms that matter to you most. Babies in Biz Pod. That's where you can find us. And hey, go to iTunes, rate this show, give us a comment. Let us know how awesome it was. It really helps us reach other entrepreneurial parents who are trying to find their own way. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Babies in Business podcast. Who do you know that would benefit from hearing this episode? Share it with them and post about it on social media. You can find the show notes for this episode, free downloads, and connect with the rest of the community at babiesandbiz.com. We'll see you next time.